now. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this exciting double issue of a Tuesday training where we are joined by Sophia Safrud and Rebecca Soule from the MSU Food Product Development Lab. My name is Anna Fleece. I'm the Food and Ag Development Center Director with the Great Falls Development Alliance. We serve the 13 counties of north central Montana. We have another FADC person with us today. So Hannah, if you're welcome to put your information in the chat for everybody as well. Yes, the FADC network is a 11-part network throughout the state of Montana where we help food and ag businesses do value-added ag, and we connect them to resources. And one of our excellent resources that we have in Montana is the MSU Food Product Development Lab. So I'm going to let Sophia and Rebecca take over here. Please save your questions till the end. There will be time for lots of questions. But other than that, I'll let you guys take it away.
Okay, awesome. I am switching to sharing our PowerPoint. Okay, awesome.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for inviting us this afternoon to join your meeting. We are excited to share with you what we do here at Montana State University in the Food Product Development Lab. Thought we'd take a moment to introduce ourselves individually and kind of tell you a little bit more about us. My background is pretty diverse in food. It really started with my love of cooking, watching my mother in the kitchen and pushing the Cuisinart button. And I've been in love with food ever since. So I love talking about it. I love sharing food. I love learning about food. And I've spent the entire life of my career in hospitality or in food. So it's over a spanning of 30 years that I've been in this industry. My background that I spent over 20 years is private home management, where I worked for different families from Seattle to Bozeman and helping them run their home, or as a personal assistant, menu planning and execution. And I have about 6 or 7 years as a food photographer, stylist, and art director for a local magazine. So as you can see by the photos there, that is my food and also my photography. So I am a food storyteller by heart, and have also a background in catering, working in under like tents out in the middle of a field and helping to set that up for an experience for guests, and working in a restaurant, lots of customer service over the years and private chef. And then I returned to school later in life and got my culinary arts degree and graduated, unfortunately in 2020. So my graduation was online for the first degree, but I enjoyed returning to school so much that I continued. And I was the first student from culinary arts, the 2+2 program, to go from a 2-degree associate's degree to a 4-year degree, right into a bachelor's degree in the hospitality management farm to table. And I graduated in May of 2023 and became a staff member about 5 days after that. So I've been the Culinary Research Chef since, and I also co-instruct a Nutrition 227, which is why we decided to do this meeting in this room. This is the kitchen where I co-instruct the students, but also where we do recipe development. I work out of 2 different kitchens. This one is our more casual kitchen. We call it the home ec kitchen. So we don't feed the public out of this kitchen. This is a teaching kitchen. We have another kitchen that the culinary arts students do use, and that's a commercial kitchen where they will have a bistro and they'll serve the public. So I kind of go between 2, depending on what I need with equipment or space or execution. So right now we are currently testing in this kitchen, and just thought we'd like to share what the space looks like. I'm going to introduce my assistant, Annie Kozlowski. She is in school today and was unable to join us, but this is my right and left-hand person that helps me in the kitchen. Annie was a student of mine in 227, the first semester that I taught. And she and I met then, and then I was looking for an assistant the following semester. She applied for that role, and I remembered her from class and was so impressed with her. So she and I have been working together for over a year. She is a baking and pastry background, had a certification back in 2022, and she's fantastic and incredibly talented. So when we have clients that might need baking and pastry or that kind of food chemistry, Annie is the pro that I bring in on these different projects. She has extensive background in front of house and back of house, and with catering as well. So she and I both share a love of setting a table, of presenting something to a person and being able to dine together and putting it together as a food story. She is also a recipient of the James Beard Foundation National Scholarship, and I was actually one of 3 or 4 instructors or professors that wrote in on her behalf. She ended up receiving the highest of the scholarships because she is an absolute all-star person to have on the team. And she recently went to the San Diego Food and Wine Festival back in November and got to work alongside some well-known pastry chefs, helping them to execute for an event. So that is Annie, and she and I work on all the culinary side of things with the Food Product Development Lab.
Awesome. And switching gears a little bit, I didn't grow up as much in the kitchen. I grew up pretty much consistently in muck boots on the farm. So I grew up on a dairy farm in Northeast South Dakota. And my background is, in dairy and agricultural crop farming, and took that to school with me thinking I wanted to be a mechanical engineer because I liked spending time underneath a tractor or inside the shop with my dad more than I did in the vet barn with my mom. But then I discovered that there's maybe an overlap between the agricultural and the engineering interests I had. So I have backgrounds in different types of food processing, cheese to nutrition or protein bars. I've done some grain cleaning and all of that while getting my bachelor's in mechanical engineering at Montana State. My senior year, I was introduced to the Food Product Development Lab and have since been working with the lab as the extrusion program manager. Extrusion is a type of food process that I can get into more later, but that fancy looking spaceship machine in the middle there, that's our extruder. And so I have some certifications in food safety, preventative controls qualified individual, and I'm currently working on my Master's of Science in Mechanical Engineering with a focus on food processing. So it's pretty interdisciplinary. I have advisors in food and nutrition, engineering, and food science. So moving on beyond like our resumes and who we are, is how we connect with our communities, given our backgrounds. So one of my favorite parts of what I do is the people I meet and the stories that I learn from them and their journeys through food and agriculture. So the leftmost picture is of me giving a extrusion demonstration to a group of Montana stakeholders. So they're producers or value-added manufacturers, and teaching them about extrusion and how I use Montana crops to make extruded products. I love doing those sorts of events because an extrusion is not something that you can typically see every day, and most people don't have much background information on it. It's the type of food process that makes products such as breakfast cereals, your puffed snacks that include hip peas or Cheetos, the small little crunchy bits in your granola bars. Pasta is extruded, and also a lot of plant-based meats are extruded. And so I cover all of these realms in my research and service capabilities, all of these categories, and get to meet a lot of very unique people in those industries. On our top right is a photo from a Bozeman farmers market. So we partnered with a local company. Chef Rebecca did some product development. They were given a ingredient that this manufacturer typically wastes or composts. But our lab, we did some analysis on it, found that it was safe for human consumption and that it was nutritious. And so then we brought it into the kitchen, and Chef Rebecca and Annie took off with it and made some delicious products. There's photos of those further on, but here we show that we're offering tastings to the public and educating on in this particular case, we're talking about cocoa shells. Cocoa shells are most often composted or turned into mulch, but they're rich in fiber and antioxidants, and they do have that chocolatey flavor to them. And so they were used in this product development. And so we went to the farmers market for a couple weeks and educated consumers and received feedback on the products to inform this private company about the market development for that ingredient. And then down on the right is an example of Soule education. We love K-12 students and teaching them about a side of food that they normally don't see, and what goes on behind the scenes to make that box of cereal or the recipe that their parent finds on the internet and cooks up, how to use local ingredients and all of that. And that there's a holistic kind of environment to food manufacturing and food as a culture, that it goes from field to food, that there's a process through there and lots of people are involved in that. And so it's a meaningful kind of market. And it's interesting to teach them to then perceive that with meaning, whether that's through their senses when they're tasting food products, or whether it's through logic when analyzing why one product maybe costs more than the other, or how the engineering, what the background on the engineering is in order to develop a product. And so we do events like these throughout the year. And I mean, if anyone's ever interested in seeing a demonstration on extrusion, you can let me know and we can line that up. Otherwise, keep a lookout on our Instagram or our website, and usually we notify like if we're going to be out and about in the public.
Okay, so these are examples of things that have come out of the kitchen and some different projects that were handed to us to work with, to play with, to have fun with. The photo on the left is texturized vegetable protein that we were working on with the extruder. And so that was lentil based. So things that Sophia might make or a grad student works on, I then come in to help them create a flavor or a presentation, or what can you do with these things and how far can you push them. So I made meatballs, and that was a really fun project for a grad student that we had here who since has graduated, and a very long project that he worked on. The second photo is just going back to those cocoa shells and upcycling them. So we that's an example of actual sit down tasting with our client and presenting them with possibilities of what you can do with the cocoa shells and different kinds of recipes. The next photo is working with another form of TVP that was actually, I took it home and played with it, and I just did a taco. So I wanted to see what it would do in different kinds of heat and flavors, and presenting it with different textures. And so that was just me having some fun with another ingredient that we have available. So, and then finally, there was a project a couple summers ago that we joined with another professor on campus who was working with edible weeds. And so that is actually a compound butter that has purslane in it, and was eventually presented to our president of MSU for a sit-down luncheon over the summer. So that was another project that I got to work with students in guiding them of what to do with an edible weed. What is it? How it's outside, different flavor profiles, exploring. And then we put them all on charcuterie boards, a couple different recipes, presented it during the luncheon so that our guests could experience something that maybe they would never have experienced otherwise.
So given all that background and how we operate, this is how we connect with our stakeholders or industry partners. So you can contact us for more description or conversation about what these services look like. But this is kind of a abbreviated list. So with extrusion, I can do trials and demos. So my machine is a pilot scale. It's degrees smaller in throughput than a normal co-packer's extruder would be. And so I can do a direct expanded, which would be your puffed products, pasta or plant-based meats, and work with you on kind of investigating how your ingredients will react in the extruder, go through different trials with that. We could also offer consulting based on our expertise, and then our lab director's background, a PhD in food science and sensory science. And really, we're just problem solvers. A lot of times it's how do I make money? This is what I grow. How do I make money? This is what I source, or I already make these, or it all kind of comes down to money. And that's what we have a background in, is that the economical path forward in product development, what makes sense. And we just have a good grasp on the different aspects that play into that. And then finally, we are not an accredited testing lab or food testing lab. What that means is, say for like a low acid food, and you're making a pasta sauce and you want to can that and have it on a shelf. One of the steps for that is a process authority will have to sign off on that process to make sure. And a process authority is a state qualified individual whose signature means that your process is acceptable. And so we don't have that sort of signing power, or our tests won't hold merit to FDA regulations or requirements. But what it can do is offer insight into the product development. So we often do this in research to point us in the right direction on further recipe testing, whether that's the texture of the product, understanding its firmness or its crunchiness, how much water it absorbs, the viscosity of a liquid. Water activity is super important, as you know, for food safety. So we can utilize information like that and feed it back into our recipe development process. And then Chef Rebecca can talk more about what she does on her side of things in the kitchen.
So moving into recipe development, that could be just taking a single ingredient and a couple of ideas and figuring out what direction we want to go in. And these are examples, and the photos that you see are actual sit-down tastings that Annie and I have put together, of course, with the help of Sophia. She's always in the kitchen with me when a client comes in. And we produced a few different products here. Some are paired. If you look on the slate boards, each thing on the board was paired with another flavor. And so we put this together as the final sit down with our client. And I think it's really important that that we dine together, and that they are being able to look at a potential product that they would sell through a client or customer or consumer's lens. Before they get into their side of things, I want them to experience that. And we all sit and eat together and give feedback and suggestions based on how many recipes that we are to develop in a really short amount of time. So for this particular tasting that you see on the two photos on either the right and the left, We actually had a client that drove quite a distance to come down to meet with us, and it was during spring break and she had to bring her children with her. So I created a sit-down lunch that was going to be more child-friendly so that they could be involved with tasting everything and giving feedback. And so you'll see little bits of fruit and oranges and things like that. And then they got to take some things home with them. So they had a great time, but that is an example of what some of the tables will look like, because I do feel it's very important that at the end that we really tie things together in appreciation with the clients that we've worked with.
Did we touch on the large sensory
Oh,
testing?
sorry. The large sensory testing, apologize. And that's another thing that we offer. That can be in two different kinds. We do have like a smaller, more controlled testing that would meet a couple of times. And then we have a larger sensory test that I'm more involved with, where we would bring in about 130 to 35 at most people into the other kitchen, because it has a large, it's the old dining hall on campus. So it can accommodate groups of people that we would bring in about 15 or so at a time. I run the kitchen on that, and we are able to get all the data that's needed for a particular testing. So we would have everything on trays and marked and everything set up in the kitchen. So that way it's executed for whether it's for a client or for a grad student who might need that information. So that is a larger thing that we do put together, where everyone who's in the lab, students or interns, do jump in and help us, because it tends to be an all-day event. And finally, it takes a team. It takes a lot for us to put these things together, and we have an exceptional team of different disciplines and different backgrounds and expertise. But when we get together, it all works beautifully, because I learn a lot of things from Sophia, having an engineering background, and she learns things from the culinary team in tasting things or experiencing things, and that food storytelling. So this is a continued examples of a couple different client tastings. This is through BEP. And, you know, we are a small amount of hours that we use or are allotted to create something, but I always keep some of those hours aside, so that way the client can come in person. And these are how we set the table, is always set differently. So Annie and I will actually put together a small menu that reflects what we've created for the client, and what their, you know, branding is like, or their demographics, so that they can come in and experience it. So these are a couple of different things that we have made. So they vary just a little bit. And then of course, behind the scenes with me in the kitchen, putting things together to be plated. And we pair things. These are not all just the recipes. We will build on those recipes with a menu. So it could be a baked good, but maybe the salad works beautifully with it, or a fresh lemonade will help emphasize and bring out those flavors. But we create a full sit-down experience for them. And that, of course, is my love and Annie's love of catering and putting those things together for people.
I've been lucky enough to receive invites a couple times, and it's quite the event.
So this is another project that we worked on over the summer. It is very close to my heart and Annie's heart. This is with American Indian Foods. We worked with them and met with them about a year ago in a meeting to discuss indigenous cuisine, to discuss how we could help with our recipe development in getting that out to other populations and reservations and rural areas. And during our discussion, we came upon an idea that we would create about 14 recipes. Half would be for producers that are currently selling their product on Takabi Marketplace, which is open to anyone to order ingredients. And then the other 7 we're going to be focused on the list of ingredients that you would typically see at a food bank. So we really wanted to have it's a little bit of a challenge to do that, but also a beautiful project to work on with Annie when she was doing her internship. And also for just, you know, there was a time many years ago that I went to my local food bank while going through a divorce. And so I wanted to be able to help with this after my time volunteering in our local food bank's kitchen to give back. So this was a beautiful project that we did over the summer and spent 2 weeks in the kitchen in the middle of July in this very hot kitchen together, producing all these exquisite dishes and showcasing some ingredients that we had not really worked with, including tempeh beans, which is that creamy butternut squash soup with a chimichurri and a coconut cream. And we got to play. The photo on the right is Annie's recipe of a baklava, where she is using a honey that we had produced, or excuse me, I purchased online, and wanted to showcase that with some hazelnuts and also, you know, wild rice. So we did a beautiful salad with some seared halloumi and created all these wonderful recipes that we got to share. And the next slide is continuation of these recipes. We wanted things that were going to be of different kitchen comfort. So we have recipes that take 10 minutes to put together that might just need a couple things in the kitchen, to things that are more advanced like that baklava, to bringing in some indigenous flavors and making a wasabi sauce like you see on the left-hand side of the screen, with these pancakes that actually have some cottage cheese in it and some cornmeal that we ordered. So we really got to play with a lot of childlike wonder and help to create these stories from our kitchen here at MSU, working with American Indian Foods.
So to round things out, this is typically how we prefer the process to go when working with us. Is first is to come with an idea. It's essential that you have a groundwork of an idea that has some restrictions or it has boundaries, whether that's we need to use this ingredient or it needs to match my product lineup, or it needs to be in this form, or just elevate this current recipe. Those are all like great starting points. And we definitely recommend that you reach out to your local FADC, because they have way more business development resources than we're able to offer. And they can help direct you to us. So the BEP is the Business Enhancement Program. It's offered by the Montana Department of Ag. And if you qualify for the BEP with your idea, you could get the opportunity to have your product development or recipe development project supplemented or completely funded through this grant. So ask your FADC, see if you qualify. It's pretty simple once you know who to ask and talk to. Next, we have a new client application, and this will help us just like gather information about the project before meeting, and saving time on the front end. Basic information on what sort of services you qualify within the Montana state system. And then next, in orange or red, are kind of like more on our side. We'll line up a 30-minute consultation that can be virtual, or if you like to drive or you're in town, come to campus. We can host you in the kitchen or in one of our labs. And this consultation can be project background with follow-up of here's who we think you should connect with, or we think you should work with us. We'll start working on steps 5, 6, 7, 8. And kind of just to get to know each other and all get on the same page. Next is a scope of work. So we can, our team will draft up a timeline, including a budget with a list of deliverables, what we can reasonably offer you. Send that out, and it gets reviewed, revised, approved, all of the above. And what comes of that is a testing services agreement. Our legal team on campus will assist us in drafting that, and it'll be emailed to the client. And once that's signed, then we can start running. The steps 1 through 7 can take some time. If you're motivated and diligent or timely in correspondence, it could be a month or 2 months. Especially if step 1 is a little more shaky, it could take a while before we get to step 8 of in the lab, in the kitchen, working on your project. And it depends on where you're at in your product development journey. Are you at ground zero, or do you have already 5 products on the shelves and you're just looking to add a 6th? That also influences the timelines of these things. And I'm sure Anna will probably have more questions about this, but we'll end it right here with our QR code. So our website includes all of our publications for research. It lists our services and just like fun little tidbits of us in the news and such. But this is our team. And if you'd like to meet us, send us an email and we'll connect with you. Anything else, Rebecca?
That's it.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much. That was a great overview. And Rebecca, your photos are absolutely gorgeous. So is that an offering as well that you give clients to take pictures of their food for their webpage or anything?
I don't. That would be a separate contract with me.
Excellent. Well, good to know that's an option on the table. Yeah, let's open it up to some questions. We will have a chance to ask some questions off recording if anyone wants as well. So I'm going to open that up to our audience first.
I'm going to stop sharing.
So first of all, it's cruel and unusual punishment to put up those amazing pictures of food at lunchtime when most of us didn't get there first. They were just, I agree with Anna, awesome photos. I was curious about, it sounds like, and maybe I just don't understand it enough, but this sounds more like somebody independently is like, they want to develop this recipe, they want to test this out. I get curious about in my world, like we have a lot of restaurant clients, and how often do you work with potentially like restaurants that are launching a new product or maybe that's not available to the program? I was just curious about it because I think that would be a cool thing to do.
We would love to. I don't think a lot of restaurants know that we exist. So we definitely, I would love to work with a restaurant with Annie and
We worked with the bakery.
we worked with a bakery and that was a small scale, but if we're looking at longer term, we can certainly do private clients. We can look at BEP to see if they're qualified. And thank you for reminding me for that one. It was a couple of recipes that was for a small scale bakery, but if it's, a restaurant that wants to help work on their menu or change things up and maybe they don't quite have the time to do the recipe development, we would absolutely love to talk to them.
Yeah, I think and I can talk to Anna more about this, but I was actually thinking of maybe even Anna, like a targeted something that we could come up with to help reach them or something, because I do think there's a lot of restaurants. And are you allowed to, when you do those tastings, can you serve like a glass of wine with them, or is that off limits?
Not in this kitchen, and it's a little tricky. There are some very specific rules in the other kitchen, I believe, and I don't want to quote that because it is run differently over there. I can't even buy alcohol with our credit card. So when I do recipe development, I can't purchase any alcohol because this is a teaching kitchen and has to be in a locked cupboard, which I don't have. And they would frown upon that and wonder what was going on if they saw a couple bottles of wine.
No worries. I got kind of curious about some of the recipe tasting along with when they do like wine pairings or brewery pairings. So it was just more my getting into bigger thinking of ideas.
I would love to go that direction, Deb, but I think that I would have to answer to some really hard questions of what was going on in the kitchen.
Yeah, no worries. But I do love the idea of some restaurant testing. So thanks this was really informative. I learned a ton.
Thank you.
Excellent. Carolyn or Hannah, do you guys have any questions?
I have a question, but I'm trying to plug my computer in so it won't die. It'll just take
Perfect.
me.
We'll
I
cycle
thought-
back around to you. Give you a second to get it plugged in. Okay, so actually just following up on the no alcohol aspect, let's say that I wanted to develop a recipe for, like, I don't know, champagne truffles, for example. Is that something you could help with, or is a no alcohol kind of a hard boundary for when it comes to recipes?
We've navigated it in the past. It depends on the scope of the project, how much the alcohol is involved, especially like weight based on the recipe. It's not that it's a dry campus in terms of no alcohol, never. It's just that there's red tape.
Yep.
So if the efforts are justified,
And a discussion with the head chef that runs the other kitchen, because they have a locked area. So as long as, you know, he knew what was going on or the client purchased it, that is a possibility. I just would need to make sure that it aligned with my ability to work out of that kitchen.
Yep.
So that, like, spring semester is a little harder for me to work in that kitchen because that's, you know, they're about to graduate. So they have lots going on over there. But we can move some things around and some scheduling. I would say that's not a hard no, but that would be a conversation we would have to have.
Perfect. Carolyn?
Okay, I'm plugged in. So I can ask my question. Well, I work with Big Sandy Organics, which we have the crackling kamut, which we have the sea salt, and we also have the churro flavor. I don't know if any of you have had them. But we got a grant to expand our facility. So once that expansion's through, right now we have a sea salt and vinegar one, but you know, it would be nice to have that tested to see, you know, everybody seems to like it, but we haven't really gone through like what you guys do. But I know that we've had requests for something with like a ranch type, but one of the things we steered away because of shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
Our big concern is shelf life when we develop something. And I can't remember, and everything has to be organic because we're 100, you know, we're not 100% organic, but I think it's 80% or whatever. The only thing we have that isn't organic is the salt. Everything we cook with and everything is. So is this the type thing you do when you talk about recipes, is like if you took the kamut and helped develop flavors for that type of thing?
oh yeah, exactly. Carolyn, is your question do you want to work with us?
Well, I'm going to talk to Thomas and Heather and see if they want to. I mean, in the past, they've just developed their own because they didn't really know there was something like this out there, I guess. So they played with it themselves. But yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's the most common thing to have a chef on staff for recipe development in the lab. And this position, we created this position. So I had gone through culinary arts. I did my internship with our boss, Dr. Kuo, and got to spend the summer learning about indigenous cuisine. And that was when Chef Sean Sherman, the sous chef, was on his book tour at MSU. And so here I am popping up at all of his events like, hey, it's me again. And so I have, you know, I experienced it, I listened to him, and I was helping her to prepare for an incoming food processing class or marketing class, working on trout. So this is how the trajectory happened. It was just a long-term relationship, and then running into each other, and conversation started. So we're definitely wanting to get the word out and, you know, be able to play in the kitchen. If our clients can leave and they're excited about something that we've helped produce, we're successful. So we want them to be successful.
Well, my son also teaches business on the reservation at the Box Elder High School, and they partnered with us. And so our manufacturing company is kind of working with them and helping them see how a project comes from whatever. But this would be, I think, something I'll let him know. Heather was going to come, but she and her daughter both are down with the flu. But I know that we also produce for Young Living, their einkorn product, but they brought their own chef in and they developed their own, you know, But we don't have that luxury of with that kind of budget that they had to develop theirs. And so I don't know, I just thought it was interesting because I know that there's some areas they'd like to go to and something with a little salsa type. And we've actually even, I have a friend who's a chocolatier, and so we had some where she took and used with the chocolate too, and that was really good. The problem is transporting and heat and things like that, so there's complications when you use chocolate. But anyway, I really enjoyed the presentation and knowing that you're out here, and I will let them know because they might they might just say, here, let you develop it for them rather than, because they're so busy anyway, especially with our expansion, we'll be able to produce probably 10 times in an hour what we could before because
Yeah.
the upgrade in the equipment. We were just really blessed because they, in fact, my son called me and said, I don't know if you're going to believe this. It's kind of it's a side story. So I don't know, you might want to turn the recorder off, but my son had a blessing.
Carolyn, do you want me to turn the recording off?
Well, it's a little more private, but he'd been given a blessing by my husband, and he called me and says, do you remember 2 years ago when Gary gave me that blessing? And I said, actually, no. He said, well, in it, he said that I would see things happen in my business that I would not deny that God had a hand in it. And he said, I just got a notification that there's an organic development marketing grant available. I want you to read through it because this grant was written for us. He says, it's if somebody took our product, put it on a desk and said, write a grant that'll help this company. And I came out and spent 2 weeks here to help. And it was the hardest grant because we've written other grants, but it was hard. And getting everything in on time and everything, that grant, it went in 30 minutes before the deadline because the deadline was back east. And I honestly was sitting here just like this when Thomas hit the button. I'm like, because you know how Wi-Fi is in Montana. It is the scariest thing ever. And when that button clicked and he said it's in, it was like in. But he says, that just means they got it. We have 24 hours to see if we dotted every T and crossed every I, or dotted every I and crossed every T, so that we know it's actually going to go on. And I was in Billings with a Apex thing that they had, and I got the call and he said, we just got it. We just got news that they accepted the grant. And then it was another almost 9 months. And then it was extended another 3. So we didn't even know until last year in March that we actually got the $3 million grant to expand everything. But that expansion opened up, just the whole world because we won that trail mix thing from Boise State, and we've got shelf space sitting there, but it's like, how do you go ahead and commit to that till your production, you can stay in line with it? We didn't feel integrity with it to jump into that and said, can we put it on hold until we feel we can deliver to the volume that you may decide you want? So that's kind of where we're at. But if we can develop other flavors, I don't, it sounds like Heather might be happy to have somebody else do that rather than she already has so much on her plate as an owner.
And Carolyn, you'd be a perfect candidate for that business enhancement program that they were talking about. So if you want to pursue this, let's just set up a quick minute to chat and we can submit that application.
All right, you bet.
And thank you for sharing that story.
Mm-hmm.
That was a wonderful story. Thank you.
Yeah.
And the joys and the like deep lows of grant writing and funding. So
it was so hard. And I remember Thomas saying, and they wanted letters of support letters as well. Yeah. And he was saying, well, I don't know if we need that. Well, anyway, every one of the food banks sent us I couldn't believe how many. And then I'm gutsy. I called the county commissioners and said, hey, and they said, well, if you'll draft the letter and we can review it and we agree with it, we'll do it. I just spent hours. I just gathered all of that. And what was cool was that was one of our high points, like when they pointed. And we actually I think we had the highest score on that area. Plus we had one of the highest scores on the whole thing. But anyway, we feel blessed, but just what it'll be able to do for the community and things. And
Mhm.
so what would be nice is, I know it takes months to be able to do it, so we wouldn't be able to expand it, but our product qualifies for the health, the reason the food banks buy ours is because we meet the healthy snack initiative. And so our focus is schools. And if you can get a variety of the other flavors, I think that would be pretty awesome if we could expand the flavors that we have. And so, and then because we had the equipment, and then what happened was we were lucky enough to get one of the equipment that was, so you know how everything went sky high the last few years. But one of the pieces of equipment wasn't as high as we projected it, and they allowed us to shift some of our funding for the equipment over into marketing. And so I think that part of marketing is what you guys are doing, is getting that flavor that everybody can't live without, kind of, you know.
What is it? Spicy these days, that kind of spicy sweet that's super popular.
On that.
And we have to be
But we
careful.
have 8 minutes left, and I just want to make sure if there's any other questions that either of you have before we wrap up. I just have one question for you, Rebecca and Sophia. What is the perfect size of a company? Like, would you want somebody who's, I want to develop a cookie for my farmer's market coming towards you? Or are you looking more someone closer to Big Sandy organic size where they're looking to get on grocery shelves? What would be the best in your experience?
I have an answer in my brain,
Go
but
you can go first.
yeah. We'll make the shoe fit. We've
Okay.
worked with the smallest, 1-2 person show to the, large national, international brands. And we make the shoe fit. Like, we're a very interdisciplinary and flexible group that can meet our clients' needs. I do have a preference, but I'm wondering if Rebecca shares my preference.
I agree with what Sophia just said. Absolutely. Our love in the culinary side of things is the food storytelling. And, being able to inspire, help, assist, support, get a small, business or client excited or intrigued, and to give them a little boost or share space with them and see if that helps them to go to whatever next level that they want to go to. We're here to support that. It's exciting for us to be in the kitchen, and it's exciting for us to work with things that maybe are unfamiliar. I absolutely love working with small businesses. I am also very open to and would like to work with a long-term larger business so that we have even more time for just to work on things in some depth. BEP is pretty fast and furious. It's 40 to, ish hours. That's a lot of work to push that and to keep within that parameter of the time, and also with a small budget for ingredients. And we can certainly do that. But yeah, I think I'm very open to a long-term, larger, consistent, every single month we're doing something that is with building with a business for long term.
Excellent. That's just helpful to know. So again, if I was a client, my first step would probably be to reach out to you to check if this would be an eligible project, once I have my project in mind, and then possibly talk to your Food and Ag Development Center. And then we could get you connected up to get their recipe developed or pulse extruded.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
And with the extrusion, I can do cereal grains, any sort of starchy product, pulse.
Oh, good. That's good to know.
So it's pretty broad. I've even investigated dairy ingredients and brewing byproducts. So if you're interested in extrusion, I recommend giving it a Google and just reading the Wikipedia page, because it will give you the kind of like extrusion for dummies outlook on what product sectors are available.
Mhm.
Categories, yeah.
Perfect.
Well, I was just thinking too, because of the business classes and the entrepreneur classes in schools, what a great resource.
Mhm.
It is
Because
actually, so our lab, Carolyn, collaborates with different courses on campus. And currently this spring, we're offering a farm to market course where business, art / marketing, and or art and graphic design, business / marketing,
Sustainable foods.
and then sustainable food systems students collaborate on teams and work with a Montana company to develop a product or come up with a product and kind of go through that business planning of how to market a food product.
Wow.
Yeah, you're
So-
exactly right. It's so great.
you're familiar with Bob Quinn then, right? Because he has
Yeah.
that.
In a couple weeks.
Are you?
Yeah.
He has that greenhouse out there. He even has a banana tree out there now. So if you I'd get on Facebook with him because he's our story. I mean, he was the one that started and had the idea for the Kamut. And Thomas just was his manager for 7 or 8 years. And they were just at that level, should I grow up bigger? Or he really had 2 directions to go. And so then he said, why don't I just sell it to you, Thomas? And that they never ever had any idea of owning the business, but he presented it and it went from there. So
Yeah, I love how interconnected Montana is. It's huge, but it's small, so small.
I love my town. I just moved here permanently, by the way, Anna.
Yes, congratulations on the move up, by the way.
I know I'm no longer working remotely, but I have to tell you, it was a rough go.
Yeah.
2 days after we got here, we got the cold spell, and I said, "Oh, this is God just checking out to see if we really can be a resident in Montana."
And you survived it, and now it's beautiful again.
So I'm thinking like, okay, I can. I got through those double-digit minus double digits.
Oh, it's much better now. I'm glad the snow's melting.
Yeah, I
Well,
sent
we're
kids
approaching
everywhere. Go ahead.
1 o'clock, and I do want to make sure that we're ending on time for everybody's schedules. So thank you guys so much for joining us today, and for everybody who's watching later on. Again, I'll be sending out an email with additional information about how to contact the food lab or your FADCs. But if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Rebecca or Sophia or myself if you have any questions. All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
You continue to stay nice and warm.